Tonight, police in Ebonyi State arrest two commanders of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, and the Eastern Security Network as it uncovers 3 camps of the proscribed groups in Ebonyi State. APC presidential candidate Bola Tinubu says he will devote 100% of his time to the office of the president if elected. Meanwhile, the opposition People's Democratic Party warns Nigerians not to trust any promise made by the APC candidate. And Chinese President Xi Jinping today moved into historical 3rd term in power as he unfolds a new leadership team packed with loyalists. We begin with security, and specifically in Ebonyi State, southeast Nigeria, where the Nigeria police says it has arrested 2 suspected commanders of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, and the Eastern Security Network in Omega Village, Ishielu local government area of the state. The state police spokesman, Chris Anyawu, who disclosed this to newsmen in Abakaliki today, says the arrest follows a gun duel which lasted for over 30 minutes when the police uncovered a camp of the outlawed groups.
The operation was spearheaded by the tactical teams of Ebonyi State Police Command, assisted by the military and the DSS in the state. And what actually prompted this was the quantum pieces of reliable evidence professionally elicited from 2 suspects we arrested. One of them, during interrogation, gave us very vital pieces of evidence that necessitated this operation, and is no other person than one Nnamdi Nguta Obaji, aka State Commander number 3. He's the number 3 hierarchy of these hoodlums in Ebonyi State. And there's another operative, Theophilus, who was equally arrested earlier with the number 3 commander. While accessing and cordoning the camps identified, the combined teams were ambushed by the criminal elements with rains of sporadic shooting in their direction. Without hesitation, the allied team swiftly responded because it was expected, and they weren't taken unawares. So, in the same manner, they shot at our men, they responded, and of course, they subdued the miscreants with their superior firepower.
Well, according to the police spokesman, some of the items recovered from the suspects include military uniforms, arms, and mobile phones. Some of the suspects speak.
One of my brother will introduce me for IPOB for my side here. So I tell the boy, say I won't join them for that side. So I joined them now last month where they enter. They enter last month. And that last month now I join them for my side. Ibo now their name Ibo. From that camp, just my junior sister nowhere. So from that camp, enter my village. So go see my junior sister. He gets something very much for leg. I come at this my brother where they drive Wakada. Tell and say, waiting they do my junior sister. He saying no the place where they do the medicine. We don't pass go bring the medicine. They come back. So now policeman can't stop us, can't search me, can't see dagger for my arrest. So he can't search me, can't see dagger. He can't say make I bring my phone. He can't see picture where he can't see picture where I take snap. I carry AK with snap picture. So you can't see logo of Biafra flag. So now they can't lost me from that side. They carry me, and this my car carry me on this side.
Still on security, at least 2 persons have been killed and 3 others kidnapped after bandits attacked Magama-Jibia border axis in Jibia local government area of Katsina State in the late hours of Saturday. Eyewitness told Channels Television that the bandits attacked the border community at about 9 p.m., stopping vehicles traveling along the Jibia border axis. The bandits killed 2 of the passengers and abducted 3 others before the arrival of a joint security team, which repelled further attacks. Staying with security, former Minister of Defense and elder statesman, retired General Theophilus Danjuma, is in the news again. This time, he's asking citizens to defend themselves in the face of rising insecurity in the country. General Danjuma, who was speaking during the coronation of a traditional ruler in Taraba State, attributed the cause of insecurity in the country to what he describes as influx of armed invaders and collaborators from within. He, however, says that rather than being helpless, the citizens need to be proactive in matters concerning their security.
But some few years ago, I warned that the armed forces are either not capable or unwilling to protect us, and that we must defend ourselves. The first denial of what I said came from the Ministry of Defense. They said I was lying, and they set up a kangaroo board of inquiry to investigate the truth or otherwise of what I spoke. And they invited me to come and testify. I did not go. They wrote a report which said that I was only speculating, that there was no evidence. And now there is evidence. The whole country now is being run and overrun. They are trying to recolonize us and take over our land. Can I allow you to defend yourselves? Your Majesty, you've heard what they've said. You must then unite our people. A lot of the attacks that I got was from our people. They said I told them to defend themselves. I didn't give them arms. I will not give you arms. Find out how these people who have it got it. Use the same means to defend you, to defend yourselves.
And now to politics. The presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Mr. Bola Tinubu, says he's hale and hearty, dismissing speculations about his health, mainly from the opposition parties. The APC flag bearer was speaking at a dinner organized by the Kano business community as part of his 3-day visit to the ancient city.
Loud music in Hausa language, eulogizing APC candidates and different support groups, stormed major roads in Kano metropolis to welcome their presidential candidate, Senator Bola Tinubu, who arrived Kano on a 3-day visit. Senator Tinubu and his running mate, Kashim Shettima, touched down at the Aminu Kano International Airport and were received by governors of Kano State, Jigawa, Zamfara and other party stalwarts, including the party's national chairman, Abdullahi Adamu, and Senator Godswill Akpabio, amongst others. At a meeting with the stakeholders, Senator Tinubu assures the party of victory in the 2023 general elections as he urged them to remain focused.
This party, we see victory. This country, we experience progress. This office will be filled with joy.
come February 2023.
Governor Umar Ganduje is also optimistic of victory at the polls, considering the numerical strength of the state.
We have 40 members of the State Assembly, and we are returning most of them. So you are here to meet them, see them. Your Excellency, we have a very fantastic political transition program in our states. That is why we don't have much problem.
The head of the Northern Support Group for Tinubu's presidential campaign explains the reason behind the overwhelming support for Senator Bola Tinubu in Kano State.
They believe he can deliver, and he has been with them and with this government at the time of need. Anytime we have an issue in Kano, he comes for us, he's there for us, particularly the government of Kano State. He stood by us 100%, so it is a payback time for us.
As part of the 3-day visit, the APC presidential candidate is expected to meet with market women, businessmen and other groups to canvass for more votes.
God bless.
The APC candidate is quoted to have said he will devote all of his time and energy to Nigeria's service if elected president. According to a statement by his media aide, the APC candidate, while meeting with some group in Kano, said he will not be a part-time president that will share his time between Nigeria and Dubai. Well, the opposition People's Democratic Party is not letting that statement from the APC candidate about sharing time between Nigeria and Dubai lie. As spokesman of the PDP Campaign Council, Mr. Kola Ologbondiyan replied by asking Nigerians to take that statement with a pinch of salt, since, according to him, neither the APC nor its candidate are known for keeping their promises. Meanwhile, the Oba of Benin, His Royal Majesty Oba Iware II, says the people of his kingdom have no reason to doubt any of the presidential candidates for the 2023 election. He stated this in his palace during the visit of the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Mr. Atiku Abubakar, on the sideline of the party's rally in Edo State.
On arrival at the Benin City Airport, Mr. Atiku Abubakar is received by his party men, including Governor Godwin Obaseki of Edo State and members of the PDP Presidential Campaign Council. A cheering crowd of youths are also on hand to receive him. Mr. Abubakar's first task in Edo State is the commissioning of a presidential campaign office in Benin, where he assures the people of the South-South region that they will not be excluded if he is elected president.
South-South geopolitical zone is solid PDP. And of course, if you have already got a vice president and we elect a PDP government, you are on your way to getting the presidency, the ultimate prize.
Edo will be there for you. Everything we have, because we have everything at stake. I personally have so much at stake in your elections.
Next, Mr. Abubakar's campaign train moves to the palace of the Oba of Benin, His Royal Majesty Oba Iware II. He seeks the prayers of the monarch as he assures of quality leadership if elected president.
There is no way we can come into Edo State without paying you with this courtesy. Therefore, let me thank you on behalf of members of our delegation, executive audience, and we also seek your prayers, very peaceful transition in our country, the unity, peace, and prosperity of our country.
He is assured of the prayers of the Benin Kingdom.
Your Excellency, we have been following your statements, your assurances. We pray to Almighty God and our ancestors that you have good health and wisdom to bring it to fruition. Should you be chosen, should you be the chosen one to lead this country? We have you in our prayers, no doubt.
For some PDP members in Edo State, their presidential candidate can be rest assured of victory.
With Atiku, the borders of Nigeria will be secure. Nigerian passport, again, we have many in the Committee of Nations. The value of our Naira will be strong again, and we'll have a new beginning with Atiku. For Edo, is Atiku 100%.
Mr. Atiku Abubakar's campaign team is expected to be in Bayelsa State by next week, from where he will commence a nationwide tour of states affected by flood disaster. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
Well, in part two, after the break, Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP gives President Muhammadu Buhari 7 days to investigate the spending of ecological funds by all levels of government from 2001 to date. That's in a moment. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10, live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Police in Ebonyi State arrest 2 suspected commanders of indigenous people of Biafra and Eastern Security Network as it uncovers 3 camps of the proscribed groups in Ebonyi State. APC presidential candidate Bola Tinubu says he will devote 100% of his time to the office of the president if elected, while the opposition People's Democratic Party warns Nigerians not to trust promises made by the APC candidate. Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, gives President Buhari 7 days to investigate the spending of the ecological funds by all levels of government from 2001 to date. And Chinese President Xi Jinping moves into historical 3rd term in power as he unfolds new leadership team packed with loyalists. Staying with politics, hundreds of APC supporters have staged a walk through the major roads in Warri and Efurun in Delta State to show their support for the presidential candidate of the party, Mr. Bola Tinubu, and the APC governorship candidate in the state, Senator Ovie Omoagege. According to the supporters, Mr. Tinubu is the most qualified candidate to become president following his achievement as governor of Lagos State and his show of patriotism and love for his people and country.
Gridlock along major roads in the twin cities of Efurun and Warri as supporters of the All Progressives Congress stormed the area to promote their party's presidential candidate, Bola Tinubu, as a preferred choice for the nation's top job in 2023. The group marched through major streets, displaying placards with messages of optimism. Their destination is the Petroleum Training Institute Center, where they take turns to canvass for votes for the Tinubu-Shetima ticket.
For you to be a president of Nigeria, you must have the capacity to manage men and to manage material resources. Tinubu managed the resources of Lagos very well. Even when the Obasanjo government refused to release allocation to Lagos state government, local government allocations, Tinubu was able to maneuver for good 8 years of his administration and create development council, more local government, generated internally, generated revenue, and run Lagos very well.
What we are seeing here today is just the center. By the time we bring all APC in Delta State, PDP will run.
The youths were not left out, as they also make a case for candidacy of Asiwaju and other APC candidates.
If you're not against our governor, Bola Tinubu, my leader has said it all. He's a man who has been able to write his name in the annals of the history of this country. Nigeria can never be complete without mentioning his name. I call him the father of modern democracy in Nigeria. If Bola Tinubu has sold his conscience today, Nigeria would have been a one-party state. That is all. He stood his ground and fought for democracy and ensured that several other states was won by other opposition parties in Nigeria.
For these groups, more of these rallies across board will create better awareness on the popularity of the APC presidential candidate, Bola Tinubu, in order to advance his chance of victory at the polls.
Well, away from politics, the SocioEconomic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, is asking President Muhammadu Buhari to direct the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Mr. Abubakar Malami, and appropriate anti-corruption agencies to investigate the spending of the ecological funds by governments at all levels from 2001 to date. SERAP advises that suspected perpetrators of corruption and mismanagement of the funds should face prosecution if it establishes evidence, and any missing public funds should be recovered. The rights group in a letter says its request follows reports that the raging flooding in some parts of the country has resulted in the loss of over 600 lives, displacing more than 1 million persons, and destruction of property worth billions. SERAP argues that trillions of ecological funds have allegedly been mismanaged, which has resulted in denial of rights to life and a place to live, rights which the government has an obligation to protect. Well, still on the floods, one of the states most affected is Bayelsa State, where the authorities say every single community is impacted. The governor of Bayelsa State, Governor Doyediri, told Channels Television's Ladi Akeredoluwale on our current affairs program Newsnight that while the whole state is now one big IDP camp, centers have been opened, particularly in Yenagoa, the state capital, to house displaced persons and begin to attend to their needs, particularly health-wise, to prevent a possible outbreak of diseases.
Every community in Bayelsa is an IDP camp to begin with. However, in Yenagoa, the capital city, we have designated some IDP camps. In particular, we have a place we call the Oxbow Lake, which was used as an event center, but today that place has been opened for IDPs, and you don't have less than 2,000 IDPs in that camp. And you also have all of our secondary and primary schools that are not yet flooded. All of those schools have been used as IDP camps at Igbogene, where I visited, and in other communities within the Yenagoa city metropolis. And so, not an exaggeration, every community is an IDP camp. And that's why the task force, together with the State Emergency Management Agency, they keep distributing foodstuffs to every local government area, to every community, because no community is left out. Same also goes for the medicines and pharmaceuticals. The Ministry of Health is on top of that, and working with SEMA, they are also going around to ensure that we don't have a serious health crisis on our hands.
For the full interview with Governor Diri, do watch Newsnight tomorrow at 9 p.m. right here on Channels Television. Well, staying with the floods, with an estimated 1.3 million people displaced and hundreds dead, there are now fears that the floods will impact food production and may cause price increases. Our correspondent, Ayola Kasim, visited some of the rice-producing communities along the Benue River and brings us the situation there.
What you see here is a trickle of what we produced in the last wet season.
Massive rice pyramids unveiled in January as payback of loans rice farmers borrowed to expand their production. The federal government claimed that rice production has increased to over 7.5 million metric tons yearly, from less than 4 million metric tons recorded in 2015, prior to the introduction of Anchor Borrowers Program. The low-interest loans had helped the farmers to more than double their average yield of rice, fighting armed herders on their way to success. And so during this year's planting season, they were more than happy to plant. None of them expected a deadly flood. Since August, more than 270 kilometers of cropland along the Benue and Niger rivers have been flooded. Every farmland within about 3 kilometers on each side of the riverbanks inundated.
You are all right. Look at it.
We stopped at the farm of 30-year-old father of 7 Umar in Opakabi, outside the town of Loko in Nasarawa State. He's one of thousands of smallholder farmers who benefited from the Anchor Borers program and contributed to the rice pyramid as a member of the Rice Farmers Association. He has not only lost all the seeds planted, he has no idea how he will repay his 200,000 naira debt.
I borrowed money from the bank, and I don't know what to tell the bank. I don't even know what I and my family will eat now.
Jibrin is one of the leaders of the Farmers Cooperative Societies in Opakabi. He's owing 500,000 naira. To repay their loans, every individual in Jibrin's 25-member cooperative society is expected to contribute 1,850 kilograms bags of rice paddy for the duration of the loan. They were all hoping to complete repayment during the next harvest season. Although they have been blamed for not heeding the flood warnings, the farmers argue the warnings came after planting. More so, 46-year-old Jibrin says this flooding is uncommon.
Even last year, they told us that the water is going to be too much, overflowing. And last year, we ride machine, look at the road, even the car passing this place. Even me, we are ride machine from here down to local down to the during Hamata. So we didn't believe on that until this thing that happened to us this year. If not, I told you that since I was born, only 2012 that I experienced it. If not, water never covered these villages.
Those that stay behind hope to make ends meet by fishing. And across the river from Loko in Nasarawa State to Agatu in Benue State, the story is not different. Smallholder farmers camping on riverbanks, praying that the water will recede. They are joined in this prayer by some other richer farmers. Organizing Secretary of Rice Farmers Association of Nigeria, Sam Yua, is one of those. He has 19.34 hectares of rice farm on the water in Makurdi.
The rice was coming up fine. Then suddenly this deluge came. It's not been easy. I saw the rice just submerging gradually until everything is underwater. The rice seeds I use actually are Faro 67. They are supposed to be flood-tolerant variety, but the tolerance is only for 2 weeks. We are talking about 8 weeks now, and definitely what is underwater can no longer be alive.
Across town, the Benue State Commissioner for Rural Development, whose investment was funded by Bank of Industry, is threatening to sue the federal government for losses he has incurred.
I'm going to court. Let the court say, Victor, you don't have a case. We cannot allow things to happen the way they happen in this nation. For once, we need to sit up. And if there are ways that we can push our authorities in this country to sit up and do what they need to do, then we need to do that.
Back on the road and more than 5 hours drive from Benue to Nasarawa State, we arrived Tunga. Farmers here do not have what it takes to sue the federal government. They can only plead.
Padashine.
Really, government did not come to our rescue. Some of these banks will come and arrest our people here because we collected loan from them, and there is no way of paying them back. So we were hoping government to come to our rescue so that the government will assist us in solving some of these problems. My real farm, our real farm here, a maize farm, about 4 to 5 hectares of maize farm that has been submerged by flood.
The people here have completely lost all they have. Unfortunately, farming in Nigeria is a tedious task, and for the last 2 years, these farmers have not been having it good. They've barely survived the impact of COVID-19 on sales of their produce. They battled with herders to save their crops, only to lose it to floods. The fact is, if they do not get the help they need, not only will they fall into extreme poverty, everyone who depend on their produce for supply face scarcity and price increases. And these simply means more people will face extreme hunger across the country. From Tunga community in Nasarawa State, Ayola Kasim, Channels Television News.
Well, more worries about food security, but this time as a result of insecurity, as farmers in Kaduna State lament the production losses occasioned by the high level of attacks by terrorists across the northwest zone, which they say poses a major threat to food security in the country. Describing the development as precarious, the farmers expressed fear that imminent food crisis if the present security situation is not addressed by the federal government.
Access to high-quality farm inputs at affordable prices and access to markets are considered as some of the key drivers in increasing agricultural productivity. At this capacity training conference in Zaria, Kaduna State, farmers warn of imminent food crisis in the country, as many of them are scared of visiting their farms, particularly those in the northwest zone, where bandits and terrorists now operate.
Due to the lack of security, I can't go to my farm every day. Because of this insecurity put us inside trouble.
Insecurity has affected what we do, has affected food supply in no small measure. For instance, as I speak to you now, we're losing thousands and thousands of hectares as a result of banditries, farmers fleeing their villages. So we have thousands of hectares uncultivated, across the northwest, the northeast, and then the north-south as a result of insecurity. That said, we are experiencing a thinning supply of food, commodities, all across the nation.
Farmers believe that the closure of the nation's borders against food importation is not enough to achieve self-sufficiency if the local farmers are not adequately supported by the government. In the face of the looming food and economic crisis due to insecurity, the need for farmers in Nigeria to return to the farms with the right incentives and inputs also comes to the fore.
We do not have all the funds that we need to actually build a sustainable agricultural system. The big partner we have is the government, because the government of the country must drive a sustainable agricultural system.
Although the level of insecurity in different parts of the country remains a major threat to food security, farmers who are the driving force of agricultural development are optimistic that the government will intensify efforts towards combating terrorist and banditry activities in the rural communities where the farms are located.
Now to the Niger Delta, where the new acting managing director of the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, Mr. Emmanuel Audu-Owaborua, is appealing to directors and staff of the commission to collaborate with him for optimal service delivery to the people of the region. The NDDC helmsman was speaking shortly after he assumed office at the headquarters of a commission in Port Harcourt, the River State capital.
After the sacking of the former interim administrator of the NDDC, Mr. Effiong Akwa, the new acting managing director of the interventionist agency, Mr. Emmanuel Audu-Owaborua, is now in the saddle. Mr. Audu-Owaborua, who until his appointment was a director, Delta State Office of the NDDC, arrives the headquarters in Port Harcourt amidst cheers from staff of the commission. His first assignment is a meeting with directors of the commission before an interactive session with the staff.
We are so delighted that our main man is the acting MD. Everybody is reassured that we will certainly, by ourselves, project the image of the NDDC. There will be no excuse for any of us, because it is our joint responsibility to achieve this sonorous task.
Addressing the staff, the new acting managing director challenges them to strive on to deliver the commission's mandate, as he promises to lead with a human face.
One of your own is on board. The pains our people feel, the pains the region feels, I feel it. What I will say to us is, let's not go there. Let's just know that one who knows your pain is here.
With new leadership comes new expectations. So the coming days will see how the new acting managing director of the NDDC will help to tackle environmental problems like the recent flooding in the area, alongside other development challenges in the oil-rich region.
More stories now. The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, says it has arrested 2 ladies and 2 men wanted in connection with over 16 tons of illicit drugs intercepted in Lagos, Abuja, and the Netherlands. The anti-narcotics officers who have been on the trail of one of the suspects, 48-year-old Aro Aderinde, for weeks, arrested him on Sunday, October the 16th, over his alleged involvement in the export of 3,149 kilograms of cannabis sativa concealed in coconut fibers. In the same vein, 2 women, Awawu Bashiru and Basirat Yahya, allegedly linked to the attempt to export 90 kilograms of methamphetamine through one pastor, Anete Efyong, were arrested in Lagos and moved to Uyo to face charges, along with the clergyman who was earlier arrested on Saturday, August the 6th. The NDLEA says a suspected notorious drug dealer in Mushin, Solo axis of Lagos, named Monday Michael, was also arrested on Monday, October the 17th, while conveying 365.7 kilograms of cannabis in 2 Toyota Sienna Space buses. The suspects topped the list of 30 other arrests made by operatives of the agency in parts of the country between October the 16th and the 22nd. 3 persons have died, while 2 others have been injured following an accident in the Obada area of Abeokuta along the Abeokuta-Ota Expressway today. According to eyewitness, the truck's driver was driving against traffic while on high speed and collided with a salon car, leading to the fatal accident. According to a statement by the Superintendent, Route Commander and Public Education Officer of the Federal Road Safety Corps, Florence Okwe, the incident occurred around 7:15 a.m. today in the state capital. She adds that the injured have been taken to the hospital for medical attention. Traffic normalcy has also been restored and the truck evacuated. The United States Embassy in Nigeria has warned its citizens about the possibility of terror attacks in Nigeria. In the alert posted on its website, the U.S. Embassy said the Federal Capital Territory, FCT, stands a high risk of attack. It listed government buildings, places of worship, schools, markets, and recreational centers as potential places of target. Athletic gatherings, transport terminals, law enforcement facilities, and property of international organizations were also cited as locations where there's a risk of attack. In view of the alert, the U.S. Embassy says it will offer reduced services until further notice. And now to the arts. Landscapes of the Soul is a solo exhibition by Professor Jerry Buhari at the Core Gallery in Lagos. The show is a retrospective exhibition of works of art done by this professor of fine art at Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, Kaduna State. We see these images on Art Review tonight.
This solo by renowned artist Professor Jerry Buhari is an invitation to the audience for a heart-to-heart conversation through the body of works in his exhibition titled Landscapes of the Soul at the Core Gallery, Lagos.
When I was thinking about this whole idea of landscapes, I was actually, in this exhibition, I was bringing together every experience of landscape that I've gone through. So in a sense, the exhibition Landscape of the Soul is like my autobiography. It's my heartbeat of Nigeria and the places I've been to around the world.
The retrospective exhibition has works that capture over 2 decades of the career of this professor of fine art at the Ahmadu Bello University in Zaria, Kaduna State, bringing them together in one space for the art community to enjoy.
He's been able to put this together and through critical thinking, I would say, and also through critical interrogation of his materials, putting this together actually form the basis of what we witness in this particular retrospective exhibition by Professor Jerry Buhari.
The message is king, as the images which show the artist's intriguing art career reveals a series of events and encounters to inspire people to do a self-assessment and to be the change they want to see.
He's taking a very important topic, the environment, and I think everyone should be very concerned about that. The way and manner in which humans abuse the environment. And just a few weeks ago, we were talking about how cold the weather was. So we are beginning to see the effect of the abuse of the environment, and these are some of the issues that his paintings address here.
This award-winning artist and teacher is drawing from experiences as well as social and political issues affecting people's relationships with their environment.
And now to the foreign scene. China's President Xi Jinping has secured a historic third term as the Communist Party's leader, cementing his place as the nation's most influential ruler since Mao Zedong. The Central Committee of the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, elected Mr. Xi as its General Secretary for a precedent-breaking 5-year term on Sunday, tilting the country decisively back towards one-man rule after decades of power sharing among its elites. His third term as China's president is due to be formally announced during the government's annual legislative sessions in March next year. The CCP also named a 7-member Politburo Standing Committee, the PSC, led by Xi, its inner circle of power dominated by the party's leaders' allies. Xi introduced a new lineup, walking at the head of a group as he led them onto the stage at Beijing's Great Hall of the People. And elsewhere, former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has ruled himself out of the race to replace Liz Truss as the country's next Prime Minister. Mr. Johnson, who believes he will have been well placed to deliver victory in the 2024 general election, says he has decided it is not the right thing to do. His decision may have paved the way for Rishi Sunak, a former finance minister who declared his intention to run as UK Prime Minister, leading potential contenders in the race.
My message to the party and the country is simple. I have a plan to steer our economy through these headwinds. We need a return to traditional Conservative economic values. And that means honesty and responsibility, not fairy tales.
More stories now. The Sukhoi Siberia U-30 fighter aircraft has landed on a 2-story house in the city of Irkutsk, and that's according to Regional Governor Igor Kopsev. The governor says he was at the scene and both pilots had been killed, but no residents were hurt. According to the Russian Ministry of Emergency Situations, the jet was on a test flight when it came down, and footage shows the plane diving almost vertically before crashing in a fireball, sending thick black smoke into the sky. Well, emergency firefighters and workers battling to extinguish a fire on the slope of Africa's highest mount, that's Mount Kilimanjaro, have managed to contain parts of it. The fire, which started on Friday night near one of the mountain's most popular climbing routes, attracted hundreds of emergency workers and volunteers who flocked to the sites to help with efforts to contain it. At least 500 people, including firefighters, national park staff, tour guides and civilians, were said to be at the scene today. Well, no casualties have so far been reported, and this fire comes 2 years after a week-long inferno destroyed thousands of hectares of woodland on Mount Kilimanjaro's slopes. For sports news now, it has been more than 2 weeks since the inauguration of the board of the Nigeria Basketball Federation, with expectations that the Basketball Federation, led by Musa Kida, will hit the ground running owing to the time lost over a leadership tussle within the body. Well, basketball enthusiasts are worried over the state of the domestic league, which has been stalled for 3 years.
For all our team sports, the DNA is the same, a blend of home-based and foreign-based. I have no doubt in my mind that this new board will commit to that strategic goal.
The Minister of Youth and Sports Development giving marching orders to the board of the Nigeria Basketball Federation. This comes after the inauguration of the new NBBF board, ending months of squabbles threatening the organization. Basketball in Nigeria has been stalled following the leadership tussle from the federation election in 2017. This has forced the governing body to rely on Nigerian players based in the United States and Europe for international competitions, raising questions on the state of the domestic league.
We've been working hard all year along, practicing and preparing for tournaments or championships, but nothing has happened. The Zenith League, we didn't see anything this year. The male, both Division 1 and 2, nothing this year. So it's really sad for us players that we're not moving forward.
It makes one become rusty at the end of the day, match rusty, I mean. You know, when you keep training and no games to play, you know, it makes us, during the game, we're not really as fit to play the game.
Basketball enthusiasts say getting the domestic leagues running remains the most important responsibility of the federation at this time.
The domestic league is dead. In fact, the domestic game is suffering. So without a league, you may have 1,000 players, 2,000 players, or 1,000,000 players. If they are not playing, there's no way a coach would want to invite them to the national team.
If you look at the national team in the last 5-6 years, it's been all of foreign-based players. We've gone outside, you know, to build our national team, and you can't fault anyone for that because there's nothing at home to fall back on. So the impact on the home front has been negative, but then again, I think now that we have a bit of stability on the basketball front, maybe it also serves as a wake-up call.
The weeks ahead will prove a litmus test for the federation in its domestic league mandate, with Nigerian clubs featuring in Basketball Africa League and FIBA African Women's Champions Cup.
Football now. Newcastle have moved into the Premier League top 4 with a 2-1 win at Tottenham earlier today, which dealt another blow to Spurs' title aspirations. Callum Wilson and Miguel Marin were on target for the Magpies, who have still only lost once this season. Arsenal dropped a point for only the second time this season as Stuart Armstrong's equaliser forced the Premier League leaders to settle for a 1-1 draw against Southampton. Aston Villa looked a different side in their first game after Steven Gerrard's sacking, with Danny Ings twice on target in a 4-0 thrashing of Brentford at Villa Park. Leeds boss Jesse Marsch faces an uncertain future after Fulham came from behind to claim a win at Elland Road that leaves the Whites in the Premier League bottom 3 and without a win in 8 games. And the main news again. Police in Ebonyi State today arrested 2 commanders of the indigenous people of Biafra IPOB and the Eastern Security Network as it uncovers 3 camps of the proscribed groups in Ebonyi State. Also today, the APC presidential candidate Bola Tinubu told members of the Kana business group that he will devote 100% of his time to the office of the president if elected, while the opposition People's Democratic Party warns Nigerians not to trust promises made by the APC candidate. And Chinese President Xi Jinping moves into historical 3rd term in power as he unfolds new leadership team packed with loyalists. Well, that's news at 10 for tonight, everyone. Thank you for watching. I'm Kayode Kikilu. Good night.